Back to Intrendias, we're looking at Delta stock. CEO sold $3.8 million worth on October 28th. What is going on with Delta stock? Stick with Intrendias. We're looking at CEO Delta sold 3.8 million. I also had a video on Delta expressing the potential lack of asymmetry for Delta stock, as the stock is now at $57.3 dollars right now. And in the video, I provided the potential free cash flow based on June quarter 2024 guidance on full year free cash flow. Delta provided guidance of $3 to $4 billion in free cash flow. And as of September quarter, we are at $2.7 billion in free cash flow. Assuming the free cash flow stays constant, with Delta stock at $57, the expected Delta stock price would be about $45. Assuming this apples to apples comparison from 2019 price to free cash flow, comparing it to today 2024's price to free cash flow. So this is clearly a downside risk where Delta's stock price have soared from the low 30s to the high 50s, potentially breaking into $60 a share. This showcases some downside risk of potentially 20%. Now, the full year guidance was between $3 billion to $4 billion, so let's be conservative and suggest the $3 billion mark. The current price is $57 for a Delta share, but the expected price, assuming this apples to apples comparison of the price to free cash flow, we would actually be looking at a expected Delta stock price of $50.63, which is still downside risk of around 11.7%. Of course, the quarterly results could have been conservative, and the full year free cash flow for 2024 could end up being $4 billion, which of course has implications to the upside. However, we're already going into quarter four, and based on TIKR Terminal, December doesn't seem to be a very popular popular quarter for free cash flow generation at Delta. So I looked up Delta Airlines here, and here, for example, 2022 quarter four. This is on quarterly period results. And we're seeing free cash flow of negative $1 billion for December 31st, 2022. And we're seeing this seasonality appear again in 2023. It was a negative generating free cash flow period for the fourth quarter. And now we're seeing this trend again, where we initially saw basically peaks and valleys, where we see negative generation growth in the fourth period. And we're seeing this, lack of a better term, like a sine curve, where we're seeing negative free cash flow generation according to the TIKR terminal. So even if we are to suggest that Delta's at $2.7 billion right now, we can be conservative and say that Delta might generate $3 billion full year free cash flow, but that still has a negative downside implication. And given the historic negative free cash flow generation in quarter four for Delta stock, according to TIKR terminal, it could be suggest that these figures, especially 3.7 and 4 billion, are too high. And the more appropriate forecast for what the free cash flow might look like for full year 2024 is between 3 billion and 3.5 billion. And the risk is not asymmetric to the upside, since we're only seeing a potential of 3% gain for 3.5 billion. But most likely we're going to see 3 billion in free cash flow, and that's going to become a downside risk of 11.7%. So it's not looking great in terms of the free cash flow. For much of the year, the free cash flow generation has happened, and the last quarter is not a good sign in free cash flow generation. Also in Delta news, as we mentioned earlier in the video, CEO of Delta has sold 68,000 shares, which equates to about 3.8 million. Now, in terms of quantity, that's not a huge amount. However, all of October, we saw selling from multiple titles, multiple people. This equates to about another, say, 40,000 in shares that were sold, and this is gonna equate to another, say, 6 million in Delta stock sold. So from a free cash flow standpoint, and then the insider selling, there is some negative risk in Delta. And we've already covered in a previous episode of Delta where I'm expecting to see a move of the downside in Delta stock in support for the mean reversion, where we're seeing that EMA 200 value, and we're seeing the stock price well above this EMA value. And we're going to see that downward trend so that the stock price reverts back towards the average over time. We're also seeing some RSI divergence here, as mentioned in the previous video, where we're seeing higher highs in the stock price, but higher lows in the RSI. So couple the technicals with the free cash flow rudimentary model and insider selling. It seems like Delta's stock price has overstayed its welcome, and we might see some short-term downside. So check out Intrendias.com. I could do that right now, actually, and check out what we have for Delta stock here. Intrendias is going to offer you free buy and sell signals on stocks, cryptos, ETFs, or indexes. Whatever you search in the symbol search, it'll pull up buy and sell signals. So this is the example on Apple as we wait for Delta to load, but we are seeing the Intrendias volume breakout algorithm lag the stock price. But for Delta, it's a different story. We're seeing Intrendias up 69% versus Delta only up 42%. So Intrendias has an alpha of near 20. And we're seeing some buy signals, most recent October 23rd on Delta stock. And we're also seeing the transparent performance of Intrendias against Delta's bought and held strategy. So the potential of turning 10,000 into 17,000 in 2 years compared to Delta putting $10,000, turning it into $14,000. So check out Intrendias.com. Check out the terminal, free buy and sell signals there. And let me know what other stocks you'd like for me to review on Intrendias.com. And I'll see you guys in the next one.